You know that single mind-boggling coaching decision that had every fan, every analyst, every talking head screaming into a microphone. That move in recent Cleveland Browns history that was universally declared the dumbest. What if I told you it was actually the most brilliant, cold-blooded, and calculated move in the entire NFL? I'm talking about benching the most electrifying college quarterback we've seen in a generation, Shedeur Sanders. What if that wasn't a mistake? What if it was step one of a diabolical master plan so audacious, so manipulative that it makes Machiavelli look like a choir boy? Because right now, behind the closed doors of the Browns facility, a storm is brewing. Owner Jimmy Haslam, fresh off securing a billion-dollar stadium deal for Cleveland, is done playing games. Leaked reports are flooding out of Berea, painting a picture of a civil war inside the organization. We're hearing that Haslam just shut down his own head coach, Kevin Stefanski, in front of the entire staff. The whispers say Haslam is furious that he's done watching Stefanski coddle the offense and hold back the future of the franchise. And now, with the ink still drying on that stadium contract, the master plan is officially in motion. This isn't just about a quarterback controversy anymore. This is about money, power, and a ruthless business move that used the entire NFL world as pawns in Jimmy Haslam's high-stakes chess game. Stefanski was the pawn, the media was the pawn, the fans were the pawns, and Shedeur Sanders, he was the king, strategically hidden away until it was time to checkmate the entire league. Stick around because we're about to connect the dots on a conspiracy that changes everything you thought you knew about the Cleveland Browns. Let's rewind the tape because to understand the genius of this plot, you have to remember the absolute chaos of the moment it all began. Shedeur Sanders gets drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Forget the draft position. Forget the analysis. The hype was supernova level. This wasn't just any rookie quarterback. This was Coach Prime's son. This was the kid who single-handedly put Jackson State, an HBCU program, on the national map and made them must-see TV. This was the gunslinger who walked into a Colorado program that was a national laughingstock, a 1-11 disaster, and in his very first game turned them into the biggest story in sports. He was box office. He was pure, unadulterated entertainment. He was the kind of player. But hold up, because what happened in that locker room after this loss tells us everything we need to know about Shedeur Sanders' character and why this man is destined for greatness. Even if it's not happening in Cleveland this season, the Browns defense absolutely a savior. The fans are ecstatic. The media is buzzing. This is it. This is the moment the Browns finally stop being the Browns. And then the unthinkable happened. Kevin Stefanski and the front office didn't just name him the backup. That would have been disappointing, but understandable. No, they did something so baffling, so utterly disrespectful, it sent shockwaves through the entire sports world. They made him the third-string quarterback, third string, behind a journeyman veteran in Joe Flacco and some other guy whose name most fans have already forgotten. The reaction was instantaneous and volcanic. Social media became a raging inferno of disbelief and anger. Sports analysts from the biggest names at ESPN to the smallest podcasts were unified in their condemnation. They called it incompetence. They called it malpractice. They called it the dumbest personnel decision in the history of a franchise famous for dumb personnel decisions. Even people who don't watch a lick of football were talking about it. The Shedeur Sanders benched storyline transcended sports. It became a cultural moment, a case study in organizational failure. The Cleveland Browns once again were a punchline. But here's where the story takes a dark and fascinating turn. While the entire world was screaming, pointing fingers, and laughing at the Browns, Jimmy Haslam was doing something else. He wasn't in crisis meetings, he wasn't doing damage control, he was in quiet meetings, high-level, closed-door, City Hall-type meetings. He was negotiating with the city of Cleveland and its officials for a brand new, state-of-the-art stadium, a gleaming palace of football that would cost well over $1 billion. A project of that magnitude requires a massive amount of political capital, public funding, private investment, and most importantly, it needs buzz. It needs undeniable, overwhelming proof that people care about the product on the field. Now, ask yourself a simple, honest question. How do you convince taxpayers and investors to help foot the bill for a $1 billion stadium for a franchise that has been a symbol of mediocrity and irrelevance for the better part of 3 decades? You don't do it with the same old, boring, predictable Cleveland Browns football that has been losing games and breaking hearts for years. You can't walk into a meeting with the mayor and say, "Hey, our team might win 7 games this year, so how about you help us build a palace?" That's a non-starter. You need something more. You need a narrative. You need drama. You need a story so compelling that people can't look away. You need star power. Enter Shedeur Sanders. Not just Shedeur, the good quarterback, but Shedeur the story. And Jimmy Haslam, a ruthless billionaire who didn't get to where he is by accident, understood something profound about the modern sports landscape. In today's media environment, controversy creates cash. Outrage equals engagement. A good story, even a negative one, is infinitely more valuable than no story at all. Shedeur coming in and playing pretty well as a rookie? That's a nice little local story. Shedeur, the most famous rookie in the league, being inexplicably buried on the depth chart of a struggling team, that's a national headline. That's a story that dominates every sports show, every radio debate, every podcast, every social media timeline for weeks on end. So what did Haslam do? Or more accurately, what did he allow to happen? He let his coach bench his star rookie. He let the world believe his organization was incompetent. He sacrificed his team's short-term reputation for a much, much bigger prize. And guess what happened? Exactly what the master plan required. The entire world started watching Cleveland. Every single week, the Browns games had a new layer of intrigue. People tuned in, not because they were fans of the Browns, but because of the morbid curiosity. They wanted to see the drama. They wanted to see if this was the week Shedeur would finally get his shot. The Browns went from an NFL afterthought to the most discussed, debated, and dissected team in the league overnight. And while all of this public chaos was unfolding, Jimmy Haslam was working his magic behind the scenes. He was sitting in those meetings with city officials, and instead of just talking about wins and losses, he could point to tangible metrics. He could show them the television ratings. He could show them the social media engagement numbers, the web traffic, the national media hits. He could prove with cold, hard data that people were obsessed with the Cleveland Browns. He could say, look at the buzz we've created. Look at how many people are talking about Cleveland football for the first time in years. This isn't just a football team, it's a content machine, and that machine will fill $1 billion stadium. Think about it from a purely cynical business perspective. The Cleveland Browns brand on its own does not have the national fanfare to justify $1 billion public-private partnership. It just doesn't. But the Shedeur Sanders brand, that's a different beast entirely. That's not just Cleveland fans. That's a national audience. That's Coach Prime's following. That's the Jackson State following. That's the Colorado following. That's a legion of fans who will buy jerseys, watch primetime games, and travel to see what happens next in this incredible saga. And here's the most beautiful, ruthless part of the entire scheme. By benching Shedeur, Haslam didn't just create drama, he created sympathy, had accidentally on purpose crafted the perfect underdog story. Shedeur was no longer just the privileged son of a Hall of Famer. He was the disrespected talent, the caged lion, the kid who was being held back by a clueless coaching staff. And what does America love more than anything? A comeback story, a redemption arc. We were all being primed for the moment when the kid who was unfairly held down would finally get his chance to prove everyone wrong. Haslam wasn't just building a stadium, he was producing a season-long reality show, and he had cast Shedeur as the hero. All he needed now was a villain. Poor Kevin Stefanski. Seriously, if this conspiracy theory holds even a drop of water, and with every passing day it's looking more and more like a flood, then Kevin Stefanski might be the most tragic figure in this entire Shakespearean drama. He was the fall guy, the patsy. He was the public face of a series of decisions that were likely orchestrated far above his pay grade. He's the one who had to stand at the podium week after week, looking like a deer in headlights, trying to justify the unjustifiable. He's the one who had to answer the endless questions about the quarterback situation. He's the one who looked completely and utterly incompetent on a national stage, all while his owner was in the back room shaking hands and securing the future of the franchise. You can see the toll it's taken on him. You can see it in his eyes. The confidence is gone, replaced by a permanent look of anxiety, and now the foundation of his power is crumbling beneath his feet. The cracks aren't just showing, they're full-blown chasms. The biggest piece of evidence? The Joe Flacco trade. Let's break this down because it's the smoking gun in the case against the Browns front office unity. The Browns trade Joe Flacco, the veteran quarterback Stefanski handpicked to be his opening day starter, to a division rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. On its face, the move is questionable, but then Mike Tomlin, the legendary, universally respected head coach of the Steelers, holds a press conference and he doesn't just say he's happy to have Flacco, he goes out of his way to express his shock, basically calling the Browns front office office stupid without using the word. He said, and I'm paraphrasing, that Browns GM Andrew Berry must be smarter than him because he can't possibly understand why you would trade a quarterback you trusted enough to start for you just weeks ago to a team in your own division that desperately needs help at that exact position. That is not a normal comment. Coaches, especially veterans like Tomlin, do not publicly question the intelligence of a rival GM like that. It was a direct shot across the bow, and as the great Pat McAfee broke down on his show, he nailed the subtext. McAfee said, "This is Mike Tomlin's way of defending Kevin Stefanski without directly saying it." Think about that. Tomlin saw what was happening. He saw a fellow coach being completely undermined by his own front office, and he used his platform to send a message to the entire league. This wasn't the coach's fault. This was organizational dysfunction at its highest level. If you're Kevin Stefanski, imagine how you feel in that moment. You chose Flacco. You built your conservative, safe game plan around him. You trusted him, and then your general manager, your supposed partner in this endeavor, ships him off to your biggest rival without, by all accounts, your enthusiastic approval. That's not a personnel move. That's a power play. That's the front office sending you a crystal clear message. Your opinion does not matter. We are running this show. You will coach the players we give you, and you will like it. You would feel betrayed. You would feel undermined. You would feel like you're being set up to fail. And what did Stefanski do when given the chance to defend his GM? When the media asked him about the trade and Tomlin's comments, he had the perfect opportunity to present a united front to say, Andrew and I are on the same page. We felt this was best for the team. But he didn't. He stayed quiet. He gave a non-answer. And in the shark-infested waters of the NFL, that silence was deafening. It was a tacit admission of the internal strife that insiders in Cleveland had been reporting for weeks. The reports from ESPN Cleveland are true. There is a war in the building. It's Kev versus Andrew and Jimmy. Stefanski wants to do things one way, and the owner and GM want to do it another. And in that battle, the coach almost never wins. This is all part of the master plan's endgame. The plan needed a villain, a scapegoat for why Shedeur wasn't playing from day one, and Kevin Stefanski, the conservative coach who preferred the veteran, the guy who called 4-yard passes on 3rd and 10, the man who made the Browns' offense boring to watch. He was cast perfectly in that role. The narrative was set. Now the stadium deal is done. Jimmy Haslam got his billion-dollar prize. He smiled for the cameras, shook hands with the mayor, and talked about getting over that significant hurdle. And now it's time for the payoff. It's time for the hero of our story to take the stage. It's time for the redemption arc to begin. It's time for Cleveland to rally around its young star and conveniently forget all the chaos and dysfunction that got them to this point. And it's time for the villain of the story to face the consequences. Stefanski's clock is ticking, and it's ticking loud. Now let's talk about the man at the center of this hurricane, Shedeur Sanders. Because while the owner was scheming, the coach was sweating, and the GM was making baffling trades, Shedeur has just been sitting there watching, waiting, preparing. And if you've followed this young man's career for even 5 minutes, you know one thing to be absolutely true. He weaponizes disrespect. He doesn't just play with a chip on his shoulder, he plays with a boulder. Being benched, being labeled third string, being doubted by his own organization, that didn't break his spirit. It poured gasoline on his fire. Look at his unimpeachable track record. It's a case study in transformation. He arrives at Jackson State, a proud HBCU program that had fallen off the national radar. It was an afterthought in the larger college football landscape. What did Shedeur do? Alongside his father, he made them the hottest ticket in town. He brought ESPN's College Game Day there. He won games, broke records, and commanded national attention. He brought a level of excitement, legitimacy, and swagger to a program that deserved it, turning them into must-watch television. He was a conduit of change. Then he follows his dad to Colorado, a Power 5 program in name only. They were coming off a miserable 1-11 season. They were the punchline of college football. They were irrelevant. And again, from the very first snap, what did he do? He made Colorado the epicenter of the sports universe. He led them to a shocking upset victory over a ranked TCU team in his first game. He made Boulder, Colorado the primetime destination every single Saturday. He fixed a broken situation. That is his superpower. He walks into chaos and creates order. He walks into doubt and creates belief. He doesn't just have the big arm or the quick feet. He has that unteachable, undeniable it factor. He's a born leader who knows how to handle the brightest lights and the heaviest pressure. He makes everyone around him better. And now he's about to do it again in Cleveland. Because let's be brutally honest, the Browns need Shedeur to succeed more than he needs them. That billion-dollar stadium Jimmy Haslam just mortgaged the franchise's future for, it doesn't get filled with 7-win seasons and boring, conservative offense. It doesn't generate the necessary revenue playing 3 yards and a cloud of dust football. It becomes a monument to success, with star power, with excitement, with primetime games, and national buzz. It gets filled by Shedeur Sanders. So yes, the organization publicly disrespected him. Yes, they put him through months of unnecessary frustration and media scrutiny, but in a twisted way, it might have been the best thing that could have possibly happened. Because now when he finally steps on that field as the undisputed starter, it's not just another game for a rookie quarterback. It is a reckoning. It's personal. It's his opportunity to silence every single doubter, starting with the ones in his own building. It's his chance to look Jimmy Haslam and Kevin Stefanski in the eye and show them what they had all along. It's his chance to prove to the world what we, the ones who have been watching, already knew. This kid is special. I'm taking Shedeur's side in this 100%. My audience, you guys watching right now, you get it. You've been following this kid since his Jackson State days. You saw him elevate an entire conference. You saw him make Colorado relevant overnight. You have seen him time and time again walk into a broken home and fix it from the inside out. You know that the Cleveland Browns, whether through luck or diabolical planning, just stumbled into a franchise-altering lottery ticket. Was the benching a stupid football move? Absolutely. Was it disrespectful to a player of his caliber? Without a doubt. But was it the linchpin in Jimmy Haslam's grand chess match to secure a stadium? The evidence is overwhelming, and if it was, then Shedeur Sanders is about to be the biggest beneficiary of it all. Because when you manufacture this much drama, this much controversy, this much international hype around a single player, and then you finally pull the wrapping off the present, the explosion is massive, the spotlight becomes blinding. And for a performer like Shedeur, who lives for the big moments, that's not pressure, that's home. The narrative is already written, a Hollywood script waiting for its final act. The disrespected rookie, buried on the depth chart by a clueless coach, finally gets his shot and leads the long-suffering franchise back to relevance and glory. It's the kind of story that sells tickets, moves merchandise, and fills that shiny new stadium to the rafters. And Jimmy Haslam knows it. Kevin Stefanski, for whatever time he has left, knows it. Andrew Berry knows it. The entire damn league knows what's coming. So, what happens next? Here's the prophecy. Shedeur finally gets the keys to the kingdom, and he balls out. Not because the Browns suddenly figured out how to build a perfect offensive line overnight, but because he is that good. He's a playmaker. He extends plays with his legs. He makes smart decisions with the ball. And he injects a level of energy and confidence into the huddle that has been missing in Cleveland for decades. And slowly but surely, the Browns will start winning games they have no business winning. The fan base, so used to despair, will start to believe again. The national media, which was covering the Browns as a circus, will start covering them as a legitimate threat. And Kevin Stefanski, his fate is now irrevocably tied to Shedeur's performance. He either adapts his conservative system to fit his dynamic young quarterback skills and miraculously saves his job, or he becomes the sacrificial lamb, the man Jimmy Haslam can point to and blame for all the early season struggles, making the owner look like a genius for forcing the change. There's no more Joe Flacco to hide behind. There are no more excuses. It's Shedeur's team now. As for GM Andrew Berry, the man getting torched by everyone from Mike Tomlin to the local Cleveland media, his seat is just as hot. He probably has one more season to prove he can build a competent roster around his new star. Because if Shedeur succeeds in spite of the another Browns heartbreak, another scapegoat, another reason to hate on young talent. But hold up, because what happened in that locker room after this loss tells us everything we need to know about Shedeur Sanders' character and why this man is destined for greatness. The bottom line, the one thing you need to take away from all of this, Shedeur Sanders is about to have the weight of an entire city and the eyes of the entire football world on his every single move. And for a competitor of his magnitude, a kid raised in the spotlight by one of the greatest competitors of all time, that's not pressure. That is fuel. That is motivation. That is exactly where he was born to be. The conspiracy, the drama, the benching, the stadium deal. It was all just the prelude. It was the long winding setup for this exact moment. And whether Jimmy Haslam is a Machiavellian genius who planned it all along, or just a bumbling owner who got incredibly lucky, the result is the same. Cleveland Browns football is for the first time in a long time must-watch TV, and it's all because of number 2. So here's where I turn it over to you. The stage is set. The hero is about to emerge from the shadows. The entire twisted saga is about to reach its climax when Shedeur Sanders finally takes over as the full-time undisputed starter for the Cleveland Browns. How many games do you think it takes before he has a signature game-winning drive? Are we talking about an immediate impact where he lights it up from week 1, or does he need a few games to adjust to the speed of the NFL? And the bigger question, does Kevin Stefanski make it through the entire season? Or is he the first casualty of the new regime, fired the moment the team hits a 2-game skid? Drop your predictions in the comments right now, because I am reading every single one. And let's be real with each other. Was I right about this? Is this a full-blown calculated conspiracy by Jimmy Haslam to use Shedeur's stardom to get his stadium? Or did I just watch A Beautiful Mind too many times and connect a bunch of dots that weren't really there? Let me know if you think Haslam really orchestrated this whole thing, or if I'm just giving him way too much credit for what was simple, old-fashioned incompetence. Look, at the end of the day, we are about to witness something truly special in Cleveland. Whether it's the epic redemption story of Shedeur Sanders proving he belongs among the league's elite, the tragic downfall of Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, or the ultimate vindication of Jimmy Haslam's sinister master plan. This is must-watch television. This is the drama, the storylines, the human element that makes us love this beautiful, chaotic game. If you made it this far into the video, you are a real one. Do me a favor and absolutely smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we are going to be covering every single step of this Shedeur Sanders journey. Every game, every press conference, every controversy, and every single moment that proves he is the franchise savior the city of Cleveland has been so desperately searching for. And trust me, you are not going to want to miss what happens next. Drop a like on this video if you are officially on Team Shedeur. Drop that comment with your predictions for the season. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep your eyes on Cleveland, because this story is just getting started.